All right, so I'm continuing on where we went from the live stream here. Now, I know that we were having some issues with networking here, and so maybe this is the first thing I need to resolve. I'm not sure why it's having such an issue here. Um, I don't really remember all this networking stuff, but we can see that there is definitely a lot of stuff being created here, and I'm not sure as to why it is so problematic with the network. Now, I've completely ripped out the network stuff in here, and I'm going to go and try to do a Docker Compose up. It probably will have the same issue. Okay, it says error response, no network found. So I'm not sure why that's an issue, but we're going to go ahead. Sorry. And let's see if we can get a bit of help from Windsurf here and see if it can resolve that issue. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and do this and see what it says, because I don't know what else it could be, right? Like the network should just work. And we have been running container stuff here. So the error occurs because Docker cannot find the network. We needed to find a network in the Docker Compose YAML file. Okay, but we already had one. And so it's bringing in the versioning. It's asking for it to have a very specific thing. I guess we can do that. Mega service network is a little bit silly, but we can do that. And we can go ahead and just stop this and try this again. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Docker. I'm going to right click on the Docker Compose file and do compose up. And we'll see what result we get now. And now it's started up, and I didn't really do anything special. It's just for whatever reason, it's decided it worked. Maybe there was an issue with the dot, the period in there. I'm not sure why that would be a problem, but it is running. And so, I mean, that's good. Now that we have the service running, we should go ahead and test our endpoint. So we did make that, well, we already used it or had it before, but we should really point it to wherever the service is running. If it's using bridge mode, I'm not sure if that means it's exposed, the 888 port, as we're not, moving it over here, it is doing 888, but let's go find out what happens if we try to ping that there. So it is a little bit confusing because we have this top level Docker Compose in here, which has Jaeger. I'm not sure why this is here. The Llama server. And what I'm going to do is just drag this in over here so that I'm having less issues trying to determine those two there. But I'm going to go back over into here, and so we have our bin. And so this will curl at 88888, which is James's great. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and do bin message. It says connection failed to connect to port 000 88888. So, I mean, I used to remember this stuff when I was doing this with James, but you know, again, it's been a while. So I'm going to say like you know, my curling from my, or we'll just give it the example here. So we'll go ahead and grab it like this and say, you know, how does my host machine access the service? Okay, so that's the question that we have here. You should use localhost or 2701. Let's modify your script. Oh, was it using 000 before? Would that actually fix the problem? Listen to all available ports, but from your host machine, you need to connect on this port, mapping the port over there. Why would that fix anything? It's already being mapped. But we can go ahead and run that again. I don't see why that would make it better, but that, you know, why would localhost fix the connection issues? By the way, it doesn't. Is it more about the networking mode in the Docker Compose? And it shows the other one because we renamed it, but this is actually the file. Yeah, it did overlook it. So we need to handle the networking properly since your WSL. Let's modify the Docker Compose file. Didn't ask it to do that. And here it's changing the network mode to host. But I'm not sure if I actually want that to be changed like that. So, or maybe it just overrides it for that one. So this should work better because the container is sharing the host stack directly, limiting network isolation. Is this how we actually want it to work? So what we'll do is I'll go up here and I'm going to go to this one. And what I want to see is, does this appear anywhere? We have this network mode. So here, this is IPC host. I don't know what, this one says IP host as well. They're all IPC host. So I don't know what IPC host is. Let's go take a look what that is, IPC host. So what is IPC host? Hosted share memory mechanism with the containers. Removes the layered security and creates a new attack vectors and application. Well, that doesn't sound great. But I don't know, like, because when we look at this one here, right, it doesn't, it's in bridge mode. But it's on the default bridge mode. So I'm not sure if that matters. But there's no override like this, and I'm not sure why we would do that. Network mode. Yeah, we don't see that there. So the question is, like, how is it getting to this thing when we spin it up? Because when we do Docker Compose up, there's nothing special in here, right? Let me just read through this and see if I can find anything. This makes me think that network default allows us to connect it. So we'll say network default. Well, we can just test it by changing it over to default really quickly here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I don't like what it's done here. This is completely useless. So we're going to say reject these changes. And I'm going to go up to here. And we're going to say, we'll paste this in here. Whoops. And we'll bring in this one here. So my thoughts is that there is a default network. And maybe your machine is part of that default network, and that's going to help it work. I don't know. I'm just guessing here. So we'll do a Docker Compose down. And then once that is done here, we will just terminate that when we get a chance here. I think it's down now. And so now we'll do a Docker Compose up. And so what I'm looking for to happen here, oh, we have an, oh no, it's available. Okay. Failed to launch Docker Compose YAML build. I mean, that's not good, but I'm not really worried about that right now. Let's see, validating the compose network services, additional mega services is not allowed. Additional mega services, what are you talking about? Maybe because it's the, it's probably the indentation was messed up here. So we'll do Docker Compose down. And we'll give it a moment here. But it's now saying mega service new default. It's not using the default one, it's actually creating a new one. So I'm not sure, that probably wouldn't fix our issue, right? But it says the port's running 88888, which makes us think that we can actually access it. So we'll do bin message. Okay. If we go over to here, your application is running on port 888. So port 888 is being exposed. Okay. So I thought this might have something else, but it literally creates a default one with a really funny name. And so we might as well have a name that we like here. We'll just hit stop there. And give me just a second to figure this out. Be back in just a moment. All right, so I don't think the issue is with our host being able to access it. I think it's restarting constantly, because if I go over to Docker PS, it's saying restarting 11 seconds ago. So if we're having issues, what we can do is go and view the logs, and maybe this will tell us what's going on with our service. So we'll go into here and this one and see what's going on. And so it's clearly having a very specific issue. Yeah, it is. And so this is our problem. This is why it's not working. Maybe because it doesn't know what's in here. So it says, yeah, we get it. So unsupported append types for generic models. I think maybe our Python version could be our issue. Now, I never run 3.9. That's really old. But that's kind of just what it pulled up. And so I'd rather pull something here like 3.10 or 3.12. I'm going to go with 10 because 10 is a lot more reliable. And so I'm going to go ahead and just do a Docker Compose down and see if that resolves our issue. We do a pip install. But let's go ahead and try this. So we'll go ahead and do a Docker compose up. So that's going to rebuild the image, okay? And yeah, we really should have just paid attention and made sure the model was restarting. But again, I'm not working with containers day in and day out like James is, but he probably would have caught this a lot faster. So we'll let that rebuild, and then we will see if it continues to restart. All right, so we did a Docker compose up here. Let's go take a look, and now it's running. So that probably was our issue, was that it was the Python version, like one of our problems, right? So we'll go ahead and do this, and we're getting null base back, which is perfect. If we go over to here, you notice we don't see much here, and we would have to go over and inspect our code here, like view the logs, in order to see the response here. And so this is the start of us working with a Docker container. Now, in practicality, I probably wouldn't want to do this right away. So for now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stop the Docker compose file, and we are going to just continue on working with our code, and we'll use the Docker container when we need to. But right now, that's not what I want to do. So let's go back over to our app, into our chat.py. And so we have started this up. We have our custom endpoint, our IP address, 8888 for our port. We need to start adding remote services. Now, if we go back over to this one here, which is the chat Q&A over here, that actually has multiple. So if we go to, where is it? Here, and we go into chat Q&A, and we go into chat Q&A, then we have stuff in here, right? So there's a bunch of stuff. I don't know if we need all this stuff. We have align inputs, which I don't know what it does. We have align outputs. I think these are things that we can override, because when I was looking at code in the comps, right, and we go into the cores, and we go into common, we'll see components. Everything extends from a component. So I'm trying to find if there are any abstract functions we can override. So maybe not that. Let's go into the mega service, into the microservice in here. And again, checking for overrides. Overrides are functions you can override, and they should be tuned in somewhere. So I see register microservice. I don't see anything there. So I'm going to go back, and I could have swore I saw this somewhere here. Maybe in the mega. Let's go into the orchestrator. It really shouldn't be in here, but we'll go take a look anyway. Yeah, look here. We have execute align inputs, align outputs. So it says override this method in mega service definition. So I'm not sure how these get called, because I'm not super good when it comes to Python metacode. But you can see here that it has align inputs, align outputs, align generator. And so these functions over here are getting overridden, right? And these are in the mega service. But I guess the thing is, like, these are here in the chat template. So we have chat template. Is this the level it's at? No, this looks like it's right against the wall. So how is this being overridden? Oh, over here it's being overridden. Okay, so that's how it's overriding these things. But why would we need to change these things? That's my question. So here it says service type embeddings, input inputs, service type retriever, retrieve parameters, none, service type LLM. Okay. So I'm guessing this is to try to fix the input. So like here, it's checking like what service is it trying to perform an action on or an execution on. I think that's what it's doing here. So yeah, like where do these get called? They must be called in this file. Here it is, pre-processing. So when it calls execute, this is your opportunity where you can do some pre-processing. Okay, that makes sense. And so this is whatever you want it to do before it goes on further. So it's inputs, current node, runtime graph, LLM, parameter dictionaries, and other stuff. So what is it doing? Well, if it's a service embedding, it's literally taking the inputs text and matching it to inputs. Then if it's a retriever, it is getting the retriever params and doing something here. And then if it's the LLM, convert TGI VLM to unified OpenAI version 1 track. So here, TGI LLM to unified OpenAI track. So here it's standardizing the inputs to that format, and then it's returning it back. Then we have output. So where is that performing? I'm going to assume on its way out. So if we search for that, align outputs. Here, we can see that this occurs on the execute. So eventually on the execute here, it's going to call align outputs. So if it has JSON, it's an opportunity to do something. If you don't do anything, it'll just pass it along. But here we can see, yeah, if it's embedding a retriever. So this is just like 2 points that we can kind of modify our code. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. Then we have align generator. So I'm going to assume that happens at some step in the generator. So we have streaming response, align generator. Is this anywhere else? It's only here in the streaming response object, which is not necessarily an issue. This happens in the generate function. So here in the generate function, okay, so it's doing something. It's grabbing chunks. We're getting metrics, and then it does something here, and it's media type event stream. So, I mean, it's definitely doing something. I don't fully understand, like, its position in here in the code, but I understand that we can override that if we want. If we go back over to here, you can see that there is some stuff happening. So that kind of makes sense. Now this thing's obviously doing a lot. We have an embedder, a retriever, a re-ranker, an LLM, but we don't have to use the ones that are being defined here. And the inputs outputs can vary based on what it is that we're working with. So that is something that we can do. Now in ours, we're just using the LLM, but maybe we should make this a little bit more complex and try to add something here. Now there is retriever and re-ranker, which is kind of interesting. But I guess what I'm interested in is like the components that it's loading in here, because this one's LLM, of course, name LLM. And so if we go back over to here to the core components, I didn't really touch on this before, but we have over here these comps, right? And so how does it know which one is being chosen when we use it, right? So like we're in here, right? And if we want to run LLM, which is going to front the LLM, how do we know that it's running this? And here it's specifically for text generation, right? So, good question. Good question. And so if we look at this one here, this has an entry point and it has a Docker file. So these are containers. And so this one's installing Python 11. And it's doing text generation. It has an entry point of SH. So if we go into here, it's running OpenPython LLM microservice. So we go over to here, OPEA. And so what we can see in here is comps import. So it's importing comps. We have a custom logger. And it's registering a microservice right inside of here. So there's that @register microservice. So we were saying before we hadn't seen it used, but now it's being utilized here, which is interesting. And then we have some OpenTelemetry and we have LLM generate. Okay. So let me think about this for a second, okay?